All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Folks, it is that time of the year. The Major League Baseball season is here. Now, we saw uh, the series that just took place in Japan between the San Diego Padres and the Los Angeles Dodgers to kick things off. But I'm here to tell you, listen, we got plenty of exciting baseball action right around the bend. We saw a very tremendous playoffs last year that was won by the Texas Rangers, of course, for their first World Series championship. And I will be touching on them in the American League West in the next couple of days. But with that said, tonight I want to talk about the National League East. Now, this division produced three playoff teams last year. But nobody, unfortunately, for the Indian NL East was able to make it through to the World Series or win the World Series. But with that said, I think that we are going to have a lot of action-packed excitement from this division this year. I want to start off with the Atlanta Braves. Now, each of the last 2 years have seen the Braves win at least 100 games in the regular season. They went 104 and 58 last year, but the results have not been there, unfortunately, for them in the playoffs. We saw the Braves win it all back in 2021, but each of the last 2 years have seen them struggle to get out of the divisional round, most notably because of their divisional nemesis in the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, for Brian Snitker, he once again has a loaded team for 2024. You look at the Braves, they had the top offense in the National League last season, and you can expect more of the same here this year. The MVP battle in the clubhouse alone that we saw last year between Ronald Acuna Jr. and Matt Olson. And of course, Ronald Acuna Jr. is the reigning NL MVP, and it's all about keeping him healthy. You know, he had the knee issues before the knee issues have flared up prior to the start of the season, but it looks like all systems go. And when you think about Acuna, this young man is one of the best players in Major League Baseball, no doubt about it. But then the season that Matt Olson had last year, banging out 54 home runs, can he put together another type year like that for Atlanta? So much depth in this Braves lineup with the likes of Austin Riley, Ozzy Albies, Marcelo Zuna, and Michael Harris II. The Braves really put so much stress on opposing pitching staffs. They don't give you an out. Then you look at this Braves pitching staff. Spencer Strider won 20 games last year. Will he be able to do it again this year? I think having a healthy Max Fried is going to be very important for the Braves, and I think he could have a big year as this is his walk year. You got a veteran like Charlie Morton, but in a move that flew under the radar this offseason, the Braves got Chris Sale. And, you know, after some injury-filled years with the Red Sox, I think Chris Sale has something to prove because a lot of people have written him off. I don't think there's going to be any pressure on him in Atlanta. And I think it's one of those low risk, high reward moves if you're Atlanta. Got a lot of depth in the bullpen if you're the Braves in the form of Raisel Iglesias and AJ Minter. And like I said to start off, this Braves team is going to once again be a force to be reckoned with. You look at the Philadelphia Phillies, and you know, after being on the doorstep of winning their second consecutive National League pennant last year, things fell apart for them in the LCS against the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Phillies were up 2-0 in that series, had a chance to go up 3-0. They didn't. The Diamondbacks rallied to win four out of the last five, which included winning game seven in Philadelphia. So you look at this team this year for Rob Thompson. They lost longtime first baseman Reese Hoskins, as he is now a Milwaukee Brewer. But you still got Bryce Harper. And, you know, Bryce Harper, the pop in the bat isn't there like it once was, but this guy can still hit for average, one of the best hitters in the game. Now, Trey Turner, you know, last off season saw him sign a big deal to come to the Phillies. First half of the season was not good. He got it going in the second half. Will that be able to continue over to this year for him? We got to wait and see. You look at Kyle Schwarber, and at the end of the day, he's the modern day Dave Kingman. He's going to hit about 200, but he's going to knock out about 40 home runs a season. So it's basically feast or famine. With Kyle Schwarber, it's either a walk, a home run, or a strikeout or a single. That's it. No other things right there for you. But still, like the Braves, the Phillies have one of the better offenses in the National League, and you can expect more of the same, even without Rhys Hoskins. You got Nick Castellanos, JT Realmuto, Alec Baum, and Bryson Stott. But then I love this Phillies rotation. You bring back Aaron Nola. You still got Zach Wheeler. You got Taijuan Walker, just to name a few, as far as the depth that the Phillies have in their starting pitching. No Craig Kimbrell in the ninth inning for Philadelphia, but is it going to be a closer by committee, or would somebody like Jose Alvarado be the closer for Philadelphia? We got to wait and see. But nonetheless, I do like Philadelphia's chances to make the postseason once again. Then you got the New York Mets. And of course, if you're a Mets fan, 2023 was a year to forget for you. I mean, we saw the Mets win 100 games in 2022, uh, spent more money last year than any team ever in Major League Baseball. And, they finished with a sub 500 record. We saw the fire sale just prior to the trade deadline, you name it. But, is there going to be any optimism for this team this year? I mean, you look at the Mets, they got a new president of baseball ops and David Stern, first president of baseball ops in the team's franchise history. Short term, is he going to try to piece this together? And what about the long term impact as far as building up your farm system? You got a new manager in Carlos Mendoza. He was the bench coach for the New York Yankees for the past couple of years. No prior managerial experience. So let's see how things work out for him as he transitions to his new role. The Mets offense was a big disappointment for this team last year. Guys like Brandon Nimmo, are still solid, but a guy like Jeff McNeil, he underperformed last year after getting a new contract. Starling Marte, the Jets, pardon me, the Jets, the Mets, excuse me, definitely need him to be healthy and have an impact this year. Francisco Lindor has been one of the Mets' best players in this lineup, and I think you can expect another solid season from him at second base. This is a walk year for Pete Alonso, the Mets all-star first baseman. And typically, when guys have their walk years, they tend to ball out. Just look at Aaron Judge a couple of years ago with the New York Yankees. But I'll tell you like this, at the 11th hour, the Mets went out there and made a move today that I think will impact this lineup, most notably Pete Alonso. You brought in veteran JD Martinez, and I felt like the Mets should have gotten JD Martinez a couple of years ago. They finally got him into their fray. This is a veteran bat, a veteran power bat that is going to do something that the Mets didn't have last year, which is to provide protection in that lineup for Pete Alonso. And I think both Martinez and Alonso together can have big seasons. The Mets brought in some quality veterans to their fray, bringing in a guy like Joey Wendell, Harrison Bader, and like I said before, now JD Martinez. His lineup is going to look a lot different this year than it did last year, and that should help the Mets somewhat trend upward and improve here in 2024. You got some youngsters if you're the Mets in this lineup, and will there be continued improvement for the likes of Francisco Alvarez, Brett Baty, and Mark Vientos? I think it comes down to them getting the playing time and the ABs. That's what it all comes down to. This Mets rotation, they're going to look a lot different than they did to start the season last year, and even now, Kodai Senga, the famed Japanese pitcher for the Mets, he's going to begin the season on the injured list. But, you got a lot of questions from a lot of different guys in this Mets rotation. And I think it's either going to be feast or famine. But if you're New York, you're happy to have Edwin Diaz return. The Mets struggled in close games last year. So hopefully, for their sake, they have the formula to fix that and once again get back to the playoffs. Then you got the Marlins. The Marlins saw a 15-game improvement last year in the win column, and they were a surprise playoff participant. They were able to sneak up on some teams last year under first-year manager Skip Schumacher, but what would they be able to do for an encore? Now, of course, no Sandy Alcantara in that rotation, the Tommy John surgery that he underwent late last season. But you still got, Jesus Luzardo and Braxton Garrett on this team. And then losing Jorge Soler, in my opinion, for the Marlins in free agency was big. Jazz Chisholm Jr., with what he can do in his lineup and what he can do in the outfield. And then Luis Ariz, he just continues to hit. I mean, he had such a great start last year, flirted with hitting 400 before he tapered off. Talking about a guy who led the American League in batting in 2022 with the Minnesota Twins, and then he turned around and did the same thing in the National League last year with the Marlins. Like I said, Miami was able to sneak up on some people in 2023, but I think they're going to have an up and down year this time around. And then finally, closing out the National League East, there's the Washington Nationals, and their rebuilding process is coming along. We saw this club only win 55 games in 2022. They won 71 last year, and Dave Martinez has a young team on his hands as they're looking to turn things around. You got outfielder Lane Thomas. He's showing what he can do when he can be an everyday guy. Shortstop CJ Abrams, who was part of the Juan Soto deal. Catcher Keibert Ruiz, who was part of the Trey Turner and Max Scherzer deal with the Dodgers a couple of years ago. You got starting pitcher Mackenzie Gore. He was also part of that deal since Juan Soto to San Diego. And then Josiah Gray as well. He was part of the Scherzer deal. So I think these young Nats are coming. They're going to be a thorn in the side, no pun intended, of some contenders in the National League East this year. But when it's all said and done, I still believe that the NL East is the Braves to lose, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to have some postseason contenders coming out of this division. I think the additional wild card helps with that. It's going to give some of these other teams life. I don't see the Nats being in that mix, but it wouldn't surprise me to see either both the Mets and the Phillies in the postseason this year. But nonetheless, I think there is going to be some fun-filled action in the National League East. The Braves won it last year, and I think they do it once more here in 2024. So, folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.